The US and Japan have conducted joint air exercises, saying the drills show their resolve to deter any forceful change to the status quo after recent Chinese and Russian patrols. Both militaries say the training confirms their readiness and strong defense coordination. The US has seized a sanctioned oil tanker off Venezuela, President Trump says, a move that also pushed global oil prices higher. Washington frames the operation as part of its broader pressure campaign on President Nicolas Maduro. Venezuela denounces the seizure as blatant theft and international piracy, saying the US had no legal basis for the action. Caracas argues the operation is a hostile provocation that violates its sovereign rights. Nobel Peace Laureate and Venezuelan opposition figure Maria Corina Machado appears in public for the very first time in 11 months, greeting supporters from a hotel balcony in Oslo. She received the Nobel Peace Prize in absentia after arriving too late for the ceremony. Renewed clashes erupt along the Cambodia-Thailand border, with heavy fighting reported near ancient temples ahead of a planned call from President Trump. Both sides remain locked in conflict as expectations rise that Washington may try to broker another peace deal. Amnesty International says Hamas and other Palestinian groups committed crimes against humanity during and after the October 7th attack. The report says the group also continued violations through its treatment of hostages and withholding of bodies. President Trump says he's concerned Ukraine hasn't had an election in a long time, adding further pressure on President Volodymyr Zelensky. His remarks come as Washington continues to scrutinize Kyiv's political and security situation. President Trump says the announcement of which world leaders will serve on the Gaza Board of Peace should come early next year. He says several leaders are seeking a role on the body, which was created under his plan that established a fragile Israel-Hamas ceasefire. Okay, we start this hour in Europe, and Russia has reported a major aerial attack by Ukraine, with at least 287 drones downed over several regions, including Moscow. The Russian Defense Ministry said 40 drones were shot down over the Moscow region, home to 22 million people. Although the full extent of the damage is unclear, flights at Moscow's major airports have been diverted. The attack comes as tensions rise between the two nations, with Ukraine targeting Russian infrastructure, including oil refineries and tankers. War insurance costs for ships in the Black Sea have also surged as the conflict extends into critical sea lanes. Okay, now joining us is Professor Georgy Toleraya. He's a professor at the Russian Academy of Science, joining us live from the Russian capital of Moscow. Professor Toleraya, you join us from the capital, as we've said. What is the feeling like in the capital after such a huge barrage from the Ukrainian army? 247 drones, over 20 of which was in Moscow. Flights have obviously been diverted. When something like this happens, which of course has been a repeated occurrence, what is the feeling in the city?
Well, of course, this is a bit of a record. This is unprecedented, but unfortunately, the people got used to it, because almost every night when you lie down to sleep, you don't know whether you are awake or not. And the drones attacks have been constant, and casually we hear the explosions when the drones are downed. And I've heard the stories from my friends that there were lots of explosions heard that night, and in some places the drones have in fact fallen down, or at least the debris, and caused some damage, which is now being investigated and assessed. Unfortunately, this is nothing new, although the scale of this tonight's event is a little bit bigger than usual. Well, I think that unfortunately has become a part of life, and there's no sort of panic, but it's of course it's very unpleasant and very the situation is the mood is not so Christmas-like.
Yes, indeed, and drone surges have become all too common. What is your analysis of this new modern war? Of course, the war has developed into aerial barrages cross-border now on a very frequent basis. How do these aerial strikes benefit each side?
Well, I would say that at least in Russia, we had the tradition of good air defense from the times of the First, Second World War, the Great Patriotic War against the Germans, as you know. And then during the Cold War, the system to protect several areas, important areas, especially the capital area, was created. It was aimed mostly against the incoming ballistic missiles and planes, but it's been swiftly modernized now to address the drone danger, of course. So, in fact, Moscow is in a better position than any other capital in most parts of the world. And we know that this is quite an imminent danger, and that the drones can bring a lot of harm unless they're downed. But I would imagine that the damage to any other like European capital or European city would be much worse in case they would face a drone attack from an enemy. Russia is in a privileged position in this sense. This is quite a new development. This is quite a new war. I'm no military expert, but mostly in the front line and in the rear. Also, the drones became the major the major means of attack and means of engagement. If we speak about this particular episode, tonight's episode, I said that shows the despair of the ruling junta in Kiev, the Kiev regime, because they're trying to inflict as much damage to the civil population as possible, especially to the Moscow population, where the politicians and chief cultural figures and civilian figures are concentrated. They hope that Russia that will break the Russian patience, and Russia would retaliate in kind, in a really strong and harsh manner. Maybe attacking Kiev and maybe attacking the what we call the centers of decision making. The government and the leading
Yes.
political installation, which we haven't been doing, and they want to get this in order to get some support from the West to continue war. That's how I see the cause for this current events.
Yes, Professor Toloraya, do stay with us as we have further diplomatic updates this time. US President Donald Trump's peace plan for Ukraine reportedly includes controversial proposals to restore Russian energy flows to Europe and major US investment in Russian rare earths and energy sectors. The report says the plan, shared with European leaders, suggests tapping into $200 billion of frozen Russian sovereign assets to fund reconstruction projects in Ukraine. It also includes plans for US companies to invest in Russian sectors like rare earth extraction and Arctic oil drilling. Some European officials have compared the proposed deals to the 1945 Yalta Conference, which divided post-war Europe. Professor Toleraya, what do you think of that comparison? Some European officials comparing it to the 1945 Yalta Conference.
That may be, an overstatement, but anyway, it suggests some rational approach on the part of President Trump, because what he suggests is business, and it's good for everyone to stop the war and start the business, and it's a really great market and great opportunities. So I don't know the official reaction to these ideas, but I think that it's quite sound.
Okay, Professor Toleraya, thank you very much for joining us here on the program. It's a pleasure to have you, and thank you for taking the time. We now move over to South Asia for our next story, and Bangladesh is set for its first national election since Sheikh Hasina's exit, with the election commissioning announcing the poll date today at 6 p.m. during a nationwide broadcast. The announcement will also address a planned referendum on sweeping state reforms. Since August 2024, and the uprising that occurred in it, and the subsequent fall of Hasina's government, the country has been under an interim authority led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus. The reforms outlined in the July Charter aim to reshape state institutions, limit executive power, and strengthen judicial independence. The upcoming vote in early 2026 has sparked political debate, with Khaleda Zia's Bangladesh Nationalist Party emerging as a leading contender, while Hasina's Awami League is barred from contesting under the current arrangement. Okay, of course, this follows Sheikh Hasina's ousting in 2024 and then her subsequent trial, which led to her being sentenced to death. Bangladeshis will know when they go to the polls today at 6 p.m. Bangladesh time. Of course, it's a huge moment for a newly democratic Bangladesh. With the Awami League barred from running Sheikh Hasina's party, the Awami League will not be on the ballot paper, despite its huge popularity still in the country. Of course, the upcoming vote in early 2026 has sparked this political debate, with Khaleda Zia's Bangladesh National Party emerging as the leading contender. Prashanta Kumar Shil joins us. He's a political commentator. He joins us live from Dhaka. Thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World, Prashanta. A huge day. It's been a long time since Bangladesh has seen an election. What is the feeling in the capital of Bangladesh today, all gearing up for that 6 p.m. announcement of when those elections will be held?
Yes, it's a very positions to went to people very exciting after the 5th August. You know that after the 5th August, from former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is in exile now in India. So there is some political dividedness from between Awami League, BMP, Jamaat, and so lots of stakeholders come in front of in absence of Bangladesh Awami League, that is called Sheikh Hasina's party. So we see that there is some actually it's a pillow passing game in our political situation the present time, because you know that in Bangladesh the two binary party, the major parties, one is Awami League and another is BMP. But we see that there's lots of organization in front of in name of election in Bangladesh. There's so some of the already they have in just one center, that some of the just only ban and nothing else. So we know that they haven't what the impact they are imposed in the next election. That is one kind of issues. And another issues, you know that who are doing that kind of movement from the 5th August revelations, call it the July revelation. That in student-led, you know that they are the student are here from in front of that. They haven't already reformed a party that's called in NCP, that's in called in National Citizen Party. So all of the happening, they are just all are the one to the doing the center of the power. So people are just seeing to that what is happening the next few of couple of month, what the Bangladesh politics at all, the total scenario is there is in conflict, is there is in some volatile issues again. So there is in some issues, and this is very very honestly true. You know that if you can ensure the from fair and free and credible election. You know that the Avam League is a very good stakeholder, and they have so lots of vote bank for that. So if you are just in a vote from Avam League, it's very tough from critical. It's not a fair and never the cost. And another issues you have to remind that after the 5th August, that is scenario is the same. But now, after 1 year, you know that the political parties, especially in Jamaat, BMP and NCP, they haven't just come on past one another some several issues, topics. They have in conflict already in here in both narratives because they all are want to go in the power. So that is in one kind of extreme situation. And now, so we are just waiting to see what is happening the next election. You know that the election commission declared the announcement for from both date. There is an Colin Tafsil from last from this week or today. I don't know what time they have declared, but there is some issues in happening from Bangladesh. In the next time, there is from we have an observation, and politically there is some clash and anti-clash because you can see that the vote scenario in Bangladesh is not very good enough. The ground level reality is so much brutal, so much intolerable, intrustable from separate and different issues. So we are just want to seeking what is happening the next, what the condition is that, and also we have to see the Begum Khaleda Jia. You know that the one of the
Yes.
most senior for that. From we haven't just waiting to see what is happening the next.
Prashanta Kumar Shil, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. We will, of course, be waiting for that 6 p.m. announcement here on NewsX World and bring it straight to our viewers. Thank you very much for taking the time and joining us. We now move on, and Amnesty International has accused Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups of committing crimes against humanity and during and after the October the 7th attacks in Israel. The human rights watchdog says the attacks, which killed over 1,200 civilians and took 251 hostages, amount to extermination, listing acts including murder, imprisonment, torture and sexual violence. Amnesty reports that Hamas, along with its armed wing, the Ezzadine al-Qassam brigades, led these crimes, while allies such as Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Al-Aqsa Martyrs brigades were responsible to a lesser extent. The organisation also criticises Hamas for mistreating hostages and withholding bodies. The report comes amid ongoing controversy, as Amnesty has also accused Israel of committing genocide in Gaza, which is a claim that Israel strongly denies. The International Criminal Court previously issued arrest warrants for Hamas leaders, though many were later killed. The situation highlights the deep humanitarian and legal crises stemming from the war in Gaza. Joining us now is Professor Rohan Gunaratne. He's an international affairs expert and he joins us live from Singapore. Professor Gunaratne, thank you very much for joining us. Amnesty International, of course, condemning and Hamas crimes, accuses it of crimes against humanity, but also accuses Israel of genocide. What is the weight behind the organisation that is Amnesty International, and will it be taken seriously by either Hamas or Israel?
Thomas, it's very good to see you. There are three principal accusations that Amnesty International is making. One is that the Palestinian armed groups, or what we call terrorist groups, committed violations of international humanitarian law, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. They also alleged that while the hostages were in custody of these threat groups, that they were mistreated and maltreated. Now, to answer your question, Amnesty International is the most respected, most reputed organization, together with Human Rights Watch. On some occasions, both these groups, both these entities have made statements that have been questioned, but largely they are considered very credible because they're based on research, they're based on documentation. In this case, there's a comprehensive 173-page report which they have released and that is publicly available. So I believe that until now, human rights groups have accused Israel, but for the first time, very comprehensive report by a human rights organization accusing Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, and other groups, other entities, because there were a total of 9 entities that attacked Israel on that day, accusing them of committing these 3 different forms of crimes.
Yeah, and as you say, Professor Gunaratne, some critics say Amnesty International has been inconsistent in its reports, in its findings, etc., accusing Hamas of crimes against humanity, but also accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza. Do you think this damages the organization's reputation, or does it show impartiality here?
Certainly, it demonstrates that Amnesty is able to criticize both Israel and also the threat groups, the Palestinian threat groups. And I think that these are accusations, so people will have to look at the evidence and make a decision whether Israel committed genocide and whether Palestinian groups violated the international humanitarian law, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. So what is important is that these allegations and accusations will have to be produced before a court of law for them to reach a conclusion.
Professor Rohan Gunaratne, thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you here on NewsX World. We now move on and over to Australia, where Prime Minister Anthony Albanese visited a Canberra school to speak with students a day after a world-first social media ban on under-16s went live, acknowledging that some young people were still managing to stay online. Under the law, 10 of the biggest platforms, including TikTok, Meta, Instagram and YouTube, must bar underage users or face fines of up to 49.5 million Australian dollars. The government says the systems will enforce this and it will take time to stabilise. Albanese said teens bragging about remaining online are only making it easier for platforms to identify and remove them. He insisted the ban will improve safety and even lead to better classroom behaviour. The move is being closely watched globally, with several countries considering similar restrictions. Meanwhile, VPN searches in Australia have surged as young users tried to bypass the ban. Let's listen in.
We know that social media is causing social harm. And one of the issues that I as Prime Minister get all the time is asked about questions of national security. There is nothing more important than keeping our young Australians safe now and into the future. And what this will do is make sure that parents are empowered, that teachers can have those discussions, that we actually have that personal interaction as we go forward to keep our children safe and to give parents greater peace of mind as well.
We have had huge global interest in how we are delivering a law that is not just, I think, a moral imperative, one of the defining issues of our time, but a law that is novel, complex, innovative. So there's been a huge amount of global interest and we welcome it.
We now move on once again, and the Federal Reserve in the United States has cut interest rates in another divided vote, but signalled it will likely pause further reductions in borrowing costs as the US central bank looks for clearer signals about the direction of the job market and inflation that remains elevated. The Fed's benchmark rate stands between 3.5% and 3.75%. That figure marks a significant drop from a recent peak attained in 2023, but borrowing costs remain well above a 0% rate established at the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking at a press conference in Washington, Fed Chair Jerome Powell touted the rate cut as an effort to improve the labor market, but he suggested the central bank may be cautious about further rate reductions. Meanwhile, the US President Donald Trump has said that the Federal Reserve could have at least doubled their rate cut. Let's in fact listen in to what the two have said.
Conditions in the labor market appear to be gradually cooling, and inflation remains somewhat elevated. In support of our goals, in light of the balance of risks to employment and inflation, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to lower our policy interest rate by a 1/4 percentage point. As a separate matter, we also decided to initiate purchases of shorter-term Treasury securities solely for the purpose of maintaining an ample supply of reserves over time, thus supporting effective control of our policy rate.
The head of the Federal Reserve is a stiff, and you fight that. It's amazing. We fight that, and yet interest rates are going down, except with him, not too much. He did a rather small number that could have been doubled, at least doubled. And that's the other thing. I think the rates for the United States are always the lowest in the world, because without us, there is no world.
US tech giants are under growing pressure over the risks posed by artificial intelligence chatbots. A bipartisan group of state attorneys generals have issued warnings to Microsoft, Meta, Google and Apple, along with 9 other companies, accusing their AI tools of producing delusional outputs that could violate state laws. The letter claims the systems can encourage user delusions and worsen mental health risks, especially for children. It cites reports of a teenager who discussed a suicide plan with a chatbot. The Attorney General's wants independent audits of these AI models and say federal and state regulators must be allowed to review them. Meanwhile, states continue to clash with Washington as the Trump administration pushes to block states from setting their own AI rules, an effort that bipartisan leaders across the country are urging Congress to reject. Well, that's all that we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX.